Tonight, a story so cruel it's hard to believe it's true and that our own government is actually the ones behind it. Children with life-threatening diseases could get deported, and that could mean the end of their lives. Then, President Trump versus Fox News. The president ramping up his criticism of the network. Former Fox reporter Carl Cameron, he'll join us to weigh in. Also, an update on Hurricane Dorian as it gains strength and it heads towards Florida. Good evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. You know, first it was separated families, kids in cages. Now it's our government threatening to deport children who are undergoing life-saving treatments. It is just the latest move by the Trump administration, and it continues to find new and unimaginable ways here to make life miserable for migrants and immigrants, including people who are in this country legally. Immigration officials, they've just eliminated a program that allows seriously ill immigrants to stay in this country while they receive possible life-saving treatments. Now, without any notice, patients started receiving letters from the Immigration Service this month. It said the agency will no longer consider deportation deferrals for people with serious medical conditions. Several patients at Boston's Children's Hospital, they received such a letter. This boy, one of them.
The letter, in the words, it said that we need to leave the country in 33 days. But in my perspective, it's making legal homicide.
People impacted could now have only about a month to leave the U.S. Now the ACLU and other groups, they're considering legal action to stop this. And just like so many things with this administration, departments, they're not coordinating or communicating with one another. I'm going to quote from a piece in the Times which describes the utter confusion. A spokesman for Citizenship and Immigration Services said requests for deferred action must now be made to Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, the agency responsible for removing people from the country. But an ICE official said that the department hadn't been notified in advance about the change and openly questioned the agency's ability to assume that role. Well, my first guest tonight is an immigration attorney who has clients who just got these letters. Mahsa Khanbabai, she joins me now. Thank you very much for the time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
I mean it when I say I don't understand or have any concept of how anyone could come up with this idea, let alone carry it out. I mean, you got to work at it to say, all right, who's the most vulnerable population we have? Oh, kids that'll die if they don't get medical treatment. Let's get them out of the country. I mean, you have to work at it. Am I wrong here to even come up with the idea, let alone to make this policy now?
Frankly, yeah, I think that that's something that is really questionable. Who came up with this idea? Did they even look into who's going to be affected? And if so, did they have even any thought about what would happen to these people once they started closing off this program? And sadly, I think that there were some people who were aware of how desperate and vulnerable some people were and that they would be impacted horribly.
To me, the legal status of these folks is almost irrelevant. You're talking about a kid who can die here. And I want to get to your clients in a second. But some of these people are here legally. This is a legal program. They got, the government agreed with these deferrals to let them stay here. They're here legally. They're getting treatments often that are life-saving and necessary. And in the middle of these treatments, we all of a sudden decide, what? I don't know, that they're a national security risk. I don't know still the reasoning as to why to do this. But explain the population that we're talking about that's going to be most impacted by this.
Yeah, so generally the people that are most impacted are going to be either the very ill, and they're going to be children to young adults to even older individuals, or they're going to be persons that have some really compelling circumstances in their background. So, for example, one woman that participated in a press conference we had recently, her husband passed away, and they had temporary status here. They had a work visa, and they're on the path to getting their green card, but it does take a number of years. And sadly, with him passing away, she was no longer eligible to maintain her status here as a spouse. And so she had to apply for deferred action to be able to carry her through until she can eventually get her green card.
Mahsa, please share the story of one of your clients, a 14-year-old girl, what she's going through before she got this letter, and how this letter could literally impact her life.
I mean, this is a brave young girl. She's 14 years old, and she is dealing with congenital heart condition, and she's had a number of open heart surgeries, the last of which was in July of last year. And she had some really bad complications that resulted from the surgery because it was such a complicated condition that she has. And because of those complications, her family had to stay here. They could not go back to Spain as they had done in prior trips. And that's when they applied for deferred action so that they could stay here beyond the standard 3-month period of time that they had been coming for her treatments. And so now, I mean, they're just floored that the government is saying that you need to leave, even though the United States is the only place in the world that you can get this care for your really complicated heart condition. And they're just, they don't know what to do. This poor girl's about to start school, and the bravery that she has faced when it comes to the surgeries, I'm hoping that she can bring that towards this immigration situation, but she's expressed that she's more afraid of the immigration process than she is of having open heart surgery.
I've heard some of the medical professionals, we just heard from a young man who himself is dealing with a condition, that this could be tantamount to a death sentence. That's how acute some of these conditions are, especially if people are returning to countries like Guatemala, et cetera, where some of them are talking about, that aren't equipped to handle their acute medical needs. Literally, kids could die, people could die as a consequence of this policy. I'm not using hyperbole here, am I?
No, you are not. I mean, and that's what's so sickening, that this is all so true and accurate, and yet the government doesn't even seem to want to reconsider this horrible decision that they've made.
And Mahsa, as I understand it, it's a letter that came out of the blue. There was no warning. They have 33 days to comply with this. And forget about getting time to put one's life in order or to schedule whatever they're given a month. That's it? No warning? They had no idea this was coming.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, frankly, some of these people are actually in a hospital. One of my clients is in a hospital and cannot leave. And there's no way that he's going to be able to, let alone find a plane ticket and make all of those arrangements. He is not capable of leaving a hospital. So
from a practical level, I've seen reports here. It's not just the people impacted, their families in tears, doctors, medical professionals, people who are attached to it. I'm sure you've, probably been shaken up by this as well. Are people, I mean, doctors, they signed a Hippocratic oath. Are they really going to let ICE walk in to a hospital and pull a kid off of a feeding tube and then, basically send the kid to an early death? I mean, practically, is that really possible that could happen?
Yeah, I mean, physicians take a Hippocratic oath. I can't imagine any physician being willing to discharge a patient when they're not ready, or to cut off treatment to a patient when it's too early. And that's, again, it shows the absurdity of what the government is doing. And like you said earlier, the shocking level of disregard for human life is mind-boggling.
This is as cruel as a thing that I've seen our government conceive of. And again, this was not a crisis in need of solution. You're talking about a small population that fits into this window, and with one more heartbreaking story than the next. I couldn't believe this story when I first heard it, and unfortunately, you're dealing with the real life consequences on the ground. Mahsa, I wish you, honestly, the best of luck with this. Let's hope sanity prevails, but again, our best wishes.
Thank you so much for drawing attention to this issue. I appreciate it.
All right, everyone, when we come back, the aforementioned President Trump, he is continuing to criticize his favorite channel. Believe it or not, Fox News is in his crosshairs. Former Fox correspondent Carl Cameron, he'll join us with his take on the feud. He'll also provide an inside look at how Fox News operates.